Hello everyone. Thank you for being here today. And happy present moment to each and every one of you, wherever you are across this beautiful earth. So maybe we can all just take a breath to center ourselves, to really feel that we are truly present with our energy, with our entire beingness in this space. Just feeling yourself arriving and releasing the day that you've had, any distractions that are pulling on your energy, and just inviting all that you are into this space. And I'm truly honored to be here with all of you today to speak into, to share this really pivotal time of transformation and shift that we are not only going through as individuals in our own personal lives, but as a collective, as a global consciousness, as a planetary consciousness. And so it is my deepest honor to be here, and my intention that this message brings you reassurance and a sense of support for whatever you may be navigating right now in your life. And we are all going through such different variations of the journey of awakening. There really are no two paths that are the same, although there are clearly some distinct themes and different layers and aspects to our own life paths that many of us are finding that similarity with our friends, with our peers, with those that we communicate with, that are experiencing things of a similar nature. And as we all consistently approach this threshold, we're being challenged in ways that we've never been challenged before. And at a time where everything is very much unconfirmed, we're in an unknown space. And for us as human beings, we've been so conditioned to always anticipate what's going to come next. We're so invested in the future. And this is part of our attempting efforts at controlling our reality. And so we get attached to the outcomes, we get attached to things that are down the line too far, and that can really pull us out of that center point. And when we get over attached to, how is life going to be in the future, we can get quite inflexible with the ideas and everything that we thought was going to happen in our lives, that we were working towards. And so when we operate from that sense of the mind, from the ego, we can get quite disappointed and move through a lot of the denser energies of anger and anxiety if our reality pans out differently than what we had foreseen. And so the nature of these times is that we really can't anticipate anything. And we are constantly being invited back into that present moment orientation. What is here right now? What's happening in my life right now with this breath, wherever I am? And how can I lean into that more fully? And so that is that still point access. That is the wisdom of our heart. that's always guiding us through its light emanation, through its truth, through its capacity to discern what is for us and what is truly aligned with our soul and our spirit, and what perhaps is out of phase or not truly in correspondence with who we really are. And so as we're navigating these tremendous timeline shifts and quantum leaps that we're all going through to various degrees, we are being humbled and we are being softened to come back into the trust beyond the mind, any level of the mind's efforts to try to control our experience, to control what's going to happen. Because it recognizes that the only true constant is change, and we've all heard of that. But we are so often uncomfortable in those unknown spaces because we can't anticipate who we will be, how our environment or our reality will be, what it will all look like. And so trust is what softens us, because it's this beautiful letting go. And when we can do that, it's when we know that we are really held by the divine, that there is this guidance that is supporting us, and that we are not in the dark, alone here, trying to figure everything out from the temporal space, that we have this deeper cosmic intelligence that knows exactly what decision we need to make at the time that we need to make it. And then that domino effect, that chain reaction, and everything clicks into place when we can allow that wisdom to be that guiding force. Because when we are trying to control our reality, it implies that we're untrusting. Because of the ego's nature of mitigating risks, trying to avoid experiences where we feel unsafe or where we feel unfamiliar. And so when we compensate in that way, we get very depleted, and we usually end up with fatigue, with anxiety, and all this unnecessary worry, because we are not in that center point. We're getting ahead of ourselves. We're trying to control the journey of life instead of flowing and surrendering. And no wonder we've been living in a reality where from the very beginning, since we're children, we're told, who do you want to be? We're always conditioned to get fixated on what's next and to architect sort of like a comfort zone around us so that we can feel safe with these inevitable changes that are always going to happen on a spiritual journey, especially in a time of awakening such as now. Yet when we allow ourselves to exist in our own comfort zone for too long, it does put parameters around our capacity to grow. We literally have less room to move. And yes, there's a sense of security. There are less variables, but it does inhibit our thriving, because we thrive in those unknown realms, and this is where we grow the most. And you may be experiencing this in your life right now, like death after death, where things are falling away, old realities are collapsing, and where you're really being tested and catalyzed to allow that ego mind to take a back seat and to really allow the voice, your own inner voice of your ancient heart, to guide you. That is going to create all of the changes in your life, no matter how drastic they are, but knowing that this is always working for you. It's never working against you, no matter what. And so it's natural that we go through these initiations of death so that we can allow that dismantling, that decomposition of things that we have composed, that we have created, that we've subscribed to, identified with in the past, to fade away and create the necessary spaciousness for the rebirth to come through, that resurrection of who we truly are in our full authenticity. And of course, that's going to keep refining. We're constantly polishing that knowing of who we really are. And there's this ebb and flow, this sort of non-linear aspect to our journey where we do have peaks and dips. There are going to be moments when we're in our stride, where we're feeling confident, where we're feeling total bliss and we feel the universe has our back completely. And then there are going to be moments where everything seems to be falling apart and we just feel so unorganized and so unable to manage the emotions and the difficult nature of these phases. I don't know if you've ever seen an ECG in hospital where the electrocardiogram, where you see the flat line literally indicates that we're not here, we're not alive. And it's normal for us to have that rhythm, the ebb and flow, the ups and downs. It shows us that we're alive. And there are these natural cycles of expansion and contraction in this universal reality. And that's not to say that everything is going to be a roller coaster ride forever. But things do smooth out the more that we know who we truly are and the more embodied and grounded we are in that gnosis. Those drastic peaks and dips where we just feel scattered and all over the place do start to smooth out. But the very nature of our reality is a non-linear consciousness expansion. And so we are all learning that everything that comes into our reality is here to teach us something. And this may challenge our sense of truth. And it may reflect to us the illusions or the misaligned ideas or concepts that we have that really need to be reviewed so that we can be our most authentic self. And we are in 2024 right now. This is the threshold that I mentioned. And we are experiencing an intensification like we've never experienced before. And the veils are completely transparent, they're thin, they're non-existent, and through that transparency, there is an exposure of light. There is such an amplification and blanketing of light upon this earth, within our bodies, within our cells, within our realities. And who we are not is this reflection of that which we are being made viscerally aware of, because we cannot continue walking into this golden age with falsities, with illusionary structures. And so now is a time of collapse and dismantle and the parting ways and the letting go of anything that is not needed in your life. And this is challenging because it's hard in that confrontation of who we are not, when we are made to look in the mirror and stare in our own eyes and start to see those veils and start to see everything that we've subscribed to that is not real about ourselves. And so this is not about comfort. This is about our relationship with the changes. Because we always have options. We always have choices of how we want to react, how we want to respond to what's appearing in our reality, what's coming up for us. And if you look out around the world, you'll see that a lot of us have had differing degrees of numbness, not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually, mentally, all the levels of armoring and those dampening layers to not have to feel what we need to feel in order to move through the deeper processes and illumination and healing. And we have an epidemic of distraction where we are finding it increasingly difficult to hold our focus steady. And there are addictions, there are all kinds of mechanisms that we unconsciously partake in to bypass what we really need to accept, what we really need to witness and love compassionately. And so grace and acceptance is the key right now as we're moving through these peaks and dips, as we're shifting so drastically from the old timeline, the old version of self, the old creations, and the trajectories that aren't the highest and most exalted for us of what we're truly capable of in our ultimate potential, which is why we came here. And the universe is always helping you to reach that potential in a lot of unexpected ways. Yet we must always remember that the universe is not working against us. We are being divinely assisted. And so you may be going through a deep purging, a deep release, and you may have been going through that for years, and it may fade away for a time and things get a little easier, and then it sort of comes back even stronger with another layer, another shadow energy, another trauma, whatever it may be. And this is the perfection of the universal cosmic feedback that is always attuning to you, to your consciousness, and providing through its unspoken language, its synchronicities, everything that we need to be reflected to us so that we can truly come back into alignment, so that we can more fully align to that new direction, that new timeline that is awaiting us. And so there is such a massive transition and transcendence that we're going through in terms of the ego perspective, the ego mind that is nothing negative. It's just designed to assure its identity, to keep us safe, to keep our conditions familiar, our sort of day-to-day lives predictable. Because the ego doesn't handle the unknown very well. And so the ego doesn't want to change. It's always looking to reinforce its own ideas, its own beliefs, its own personality, its identity, based on what's already occurred. It's always looking to what's happened to inform its position. And the unknown, which we're all in right now, really confronts the ego's sense of control. And so that may be bringing up a lot of fear, a lot of insecurity, moving into the higher timeline. where these drastic changes are really challenging our ego's dominance in our decision making, in our sense of self. Because ultimately the ego is who we think we are in this world. We think we are our job, our position in a company, our degree, our relationship, our financial status, perhaps our education. And so many times I've also seen how our ego is attached even to our trauma, the things that have been done to us, or the traumatizing or difficult or victimizing experiences that we have can, in a way, also become a persona that makes it difficult for us to see from a different lens of empowerment, of possibility, of strength. And this reinforced identity, it's always seeking consistency. It's always wanting to know that it's right. So the ego will say things like, oh, it's happening again. I knew it. I knew this was going to happen. Not to get our hopes up because we've been through things in the past, not to expect anything different. It's just the way it is, kind of thing. And I've seen as well how this can also connect with our health issues. The ego of being disadvantaged, or being a sick person, or being somebody that doesn't have the vitality or the life force to be able to really grab life with both hands. And I've seen this ego construct also entangled with our spiritual identity. So perhaps we think that we're our star sign, our astrological reading, perhaps a starseed, a Pleiadian, a priestess, any kind of archetypal structure. Again, that although we may have a very true resonance with that identity, with that energy, we're still experiencing our parameter. We're still, when we're looking here and we are identifying with what's here right now and overly subscribing to that, we can't connect to the rest, to the infinite possibility. And it is my knowing that beyond a certain level of DNA activation, 6th, 7th, 8th strands of our 12th dimensional Christed DNA, that we move beyond archetypes. There's still a certain density there, a certain magnetic pull. And we're always so quick with our labels because we're always trying to affirm who we think we are, because we have to have a position within this grand, complicated vastness of life. And when we do that and we hold on to these identity constructs, it becomes a very scary place to be in the unknown. Because the ego is confronted so deeply by the vastness of our true existence. It doesn't like to be humble in that way. And that infinite spaciousness of our true nature is what puts our ego into the correct perspective. And then we really start operating from a different kind of wisdom, a deeper, more vast, more comprehensive intelligence through the heart, through the somatic body, through the cellular structures, through our DNA. And when we hold on to these ego identities, whether that's our health, whether that's our trauma, whether that's just our personality or our spiritual personality, we play it smaller than we need to. And that may give us an experience for a time. And there's nothing good or bad. There's nothing wrong about that. But now is a time where I'm inviting you to be open to a more full spectrum of possibility, of your own expansive consciousness, your own creator potential, and to enjoy more sense of ease in those spaces, to be in your totality to the best that you can, mentally, physically, emotionally, whatever level of awareness you have, but to be accustomed, to be at ease with that expansion right now in the presence, to burn off all those parameters. That is how magnificent you are. And the energies, the ascension climate right now is challenging all of the inauthenticity and anything that is a misrepresentation or that's not really congruent with our core essence, such as our costumes, our masks, any filters that we've put on ourselves are going to be increasingly and increasingly revealed, to the point where we will compassionately witness those parts of us as mistruths, and they will organically fall away. They will be reabsorbed into consciousness units to give us more life force and more energy to be who we truly are, leaving us with that spaciousness to finally listen to that inner voice, that true, authentic soul spirit that lives and breathes through us, that is attempting to animate us more fully. This is what ascension is. It's that animation of spirit through the body vehicle. And not just personally, but in the world around us, we've been seeing over the last years that it's been increasingly difficult to sustain the illusionary structures. And those veils, as I mentioned, are so thin that we have such a wider understanding, a more comprehensive awareness of what's perhaps what was previously concealed that is now exposed. And so this is how we get to clear the distortions. This is the miraculous opportunity that we all have, even if we're struggling and we're tired and we're going through another dark night of the soul or another resurgence of a health issue, or a relationship's ended and we're just so disheartened by the immensity and just the avalanche of everything that's coming up. There is a part of us that knows that this is all working out for us. It's that frequency of grace. It's the soft, supple acceptance and that welcoming of the new, where we open the door and we invite in our truth. And we keep company with it. We start to see that that's not separate from us. That's who we really are. And it's that acknowledgement that we're divinely guided by our own higher consciousness that always has our best interests at heart. It's always invested in the higher timeline. And we all have something unique to offer. And we didn't come here to play it small. We didn't come here to put ourselves in a box, to stay in stasis or stay fixated on some kind of identity that's already run its course. We've already learned the lessons from that. And we're here for something more. So there's nothing to resist at this time. The fighting, the internal conflict becomes so rapidly fatiguing, it pulls us out of our center. Now is a time for us to breathe fully into the still point of our hearts and to be neutral with everything that's arising. a neutral association, a compassionate association. This is all working out for me. And when we can do this, we no longer brace for impact. We don't contract ourselves and become really stiff and inflexible, even in the body, where we have this tension because we're always expecting perhaps the worst case scenario. We're in this conflict with life because it is this undercurrent of distrust, that loss of inner peace. And as we go through this transition, as I mentioned, from the ego intelligence into the heart wisdom, we are handing over the wheel to our own higher selves. And just imagine yourself in the car, and your own car, and your ego is expecting to be the driver. It's expecting to be able to choose the direction of the path and the trajectory, and be able to make turns, to turn left when it wants to make that choice, to be able to follow through on what it believes to be the best decision to take or the best move to make. But right now, our higher selves are driving that car, and our higher selves, our higher consciousness, is going to be speaking so much louder, to be making a left turn when our ego mind thought that the right hand turn was the best route to take. Our higher self has a different vantage, a higher perspective of possibility, where our ego just doesn't have that bigger picture. And so your higher self as the driver, you as the passenger, are in this dynamic. And so you may be shifting lanes, you may be changing direction, things may become unpredictable, the velocity may be speeding up, things may be getting really fast, and there may be all these alternate routes that actually better serve your journey, but that you were not able to anticipate or foresee. Therefore, you weren't really able to anticipate it in the body and in your emotions. And so it's important to understand that at this time when our higher self is really guiding us, that change is not really the issue. It's actually our reaction to the changes that we didn't expect or that we thought that we could control. And so we can immediately create a belief that what's happening to us, our job, our relationship, things being taken away, health issues, financial struggle, we may believe that it's negative. And our fears of what will be next are what we must face. So if I let go of this reality, will something better come along for me? This worry, this incessant worry that so many of us have, that we will be worse off if we let go of what we have right now, if we allow ourselves to part ways, which often is not really meant for us. And that's why it's surfaced. That's why it's become clear. That's why there is dissonance. That's why there is disharmony. And so the cosmic nature of awakening, as I mentioned, is cyclical. Our universe ascends in spirals. So think of DNA. We have these rotational fields of our consciousness that are continually elevating, continually ascending. And if you imagine yourself, if you imagine a circle and you have a point, a dot where you began, and you make a full revolution and you come back to that dot. A lot of people believe that when they're going through something that feels similar to what they've already been through before, some kind of belief, negative belief, or something they've already worked on, a pattern that's been holding them back, many of the times we'll say, oh, I'm back at square one. Right? We feel like we've come so far and we've gone a full revolution, so much has changed, but then suddenly we're disheartened because we feel like we're back at that beginning point. But I want you to imagine like a coil, or imagine these beautiful ribbons and helixes of DNA. You never actually come back to the same point because you're always spiraling up and up and up and elevating. And every time you make a rotation from that point and you come full circle, you're that much more elevated upwards. And so you can almost see from a different vantage. And so every revolution, although some of the themes and patterns may be similar, there may be a similar quality to them, it never means that you're back at that square one point. And everything you've learned along the way has so greatly supported you. And this is the time to be really aware of when the ego starts to contradict you. You know, everything's all in vain, everything's falling apart, all the work I've done on myself is a waste of time. There are so many variations to our life lessons because we're so multidimensional. And so we may have a partnership where, you know, we've struggled with certain challenges with that person, and we may leave that relationship and feel very liberated from that experience, or perhaps it's a job, or we may have overcome some kind of health crisis. But when this comes around again, we always have a higher vantage, and with each layer, a different perspective. And this is our multidimensionality expressing to us the very intricate and complex layers of our own consciousness. And we will continue to move through those spirals and those cycles until everything is resolved on all levels, and so that we're truly free. So that there is literally no more attractor, a mechanism to magnetize like experiences towards us again. So that we become completely integrated, we're completely back at the 0 point. We've transcended that unconscious pattern, that unconscious belief that attracted that relationship, attracted that situation, whatever it may be. And so wherever you're feeling fears and anxiety coming up for you through your own timeline, jump. It's important to know that you're not blindfolded. We may call it a dark night, but you're not really in the darkness. And there is a source of light, your own inner light source, this eternal beacon of your heart that is always showing up. It's always illuminating the way forward if we will allow it to guide us. If we will work with it and find peace in that sense of direction with our present moment orientation, there's no need to get ahead of ourselves and attach to the outcome. We can have our visions, our intentions, all of these beautiful ideas about what we would love to be doing in our lives and what our ultimate reality would look like. But we have to let go of gripping on to how that's going to come into manifestation. And it's important for us, and especially in terms of our ego integration, to be non-attached to anything that's subject to change. Because that's where we really suffer, when we're gripping on so tight to something we thought was guaranteed, and then suddenly it's slipping through our fingers, and we're so shocked by that loss or that drastic change and the inherent death that comes with that of our own sense of self in relation to that experience. So we're always being guided with this beautiful inner spiritual sunlight that's always radiating. You can't turn the light of the sun on and off. It's always there. It's always radiant, but we must step into the light and allow it to illuminate us, allow us to soak in its warmth and to be supported by it. And so now is really a time to be really present with everything that's surfacing in your reality. To invite love and kindness towards yourself, to fully accept what is showing up. You know, we all talk about, oh, this amazing synchronicity happened, this positive synchronicity that, you know, enhance my life in some way, but we often don't talk about the negative synchronicities. And so this is the vibrational correspondence of the universe, our holographic reality that's just responding to us, and we are aligning with everything we need at the moment that we need it. And if that's something that our ego is saying is negative, then it's our judgment of that is what causes us to suffer. If we can accept the challenge, if we can accept the change, no matter how uncomfortable it is, no matter how much it takes us out of that comfort zone, we can actually start to feel a different kind of energy holding us. Like the wind in our sails, we don't need to grip onto everything to affirm what we feel is true right now. We can, instead of being like this, we can just be open. It's very much like plasma, like water, where we can breathe, where we can just let go and be held for once. Because we've been spending so much of our lives exhausting ourselves, and the universe, which is ourselves, is trying to nourish, to nurture, and to catapult us like wind in our sails into that higher timeline, the very timeline that we came here to experience. Our highest potential, our talents, our gifts, our keys, our unique perspective, and everything that we came here to radiate. And so no matter what's coming up for you in your reality, the universe is never contradicting you. It's never working against you. It's always assisting you. And so can we welcome in those possibilities? Can we feel a sense of curiosity and excitement, but also peace and comfort in the spaciousness, in the ether? Can we, whilst having identifications as certain beings, whether that's our job, the tasks that we do, whether we're a mother, a sister, a father, whether we are a mechanic, whether we're a teacher, whether we are a light worker, a starseed, whether we come from the Pleiades, Arcturus, whatever it is, if we can allow ourselves to have those experiences, not talking about denying anything, whatever is natural and in resonance for you is worth honoring, but can we can we be in that but also be open to the vastness simultaneously? So that we're not limiting ourselves to the infinite possibility that our universal reality is opening right now. It's so dilated, everything is so fluid, and there's this osmosis and blending that's happening so that we are feeling, or we're getting more access to the full completeness of who we are. And again, that requires our ego to take a step back, to take the back seat of the car, the moving vehicle. Perhaps to sometimes be humble, to say, I don't know, but I'm open to anything. I'm open to it all. I'm open to this incredible reality to be my teacher, for my heart's wisdom to guide me. And so you are always in the right place at the right time, without doubt. Let us always remember that we have a breath in this body. A breath that always draws us back into ourselves. Whenever we're feeling anxious, whenever something's tugging on our energy, whenever we've experienced a left turn when we thought it would be right, when things haven't panned out the way that we thought, everything is always working out for you. So much love to each and every one of you. Thank you for being here.